All right, you can start.
All right, so our topic or our religion that we were assigned was Buddhism. And it is me, Marty, along with Jasmine and Anthony. And next slide. So according to Shakevich, Buddhism emerged in the 5th century BCE and originated in India. A large number of scholars have studied Buddhism, including Stanford religious studies professors, uh, like Professor Paul Harrison. Buddhism is practiced by more than 530 million individuals, playing a significant role in how these individuals view the world. It was founded by Buddha, and many scholars believe that Buddha died around 400 BCE. Buddha's real name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he was said to be the son of a king that was born in Nepal. And he spent his time teaching individuals about Buddhism and Buddhist practices. Next slide. So the ultimate aim of Buddhists is to achieve enlightenment, which is termed nirvana. Buddhism views life as a perpetual cycle, and the cycle involves suffering and rebirth. An individual suffers throughout their life and is then reborn again to continue their suffering. However, an individual can escape this cycle by achieving nirvana. Buddhism does not believe in a god, but supernatural figures are a component of Buddhism. These figures can aid or impede an individual's progress towards nirvana. So Buddhism involves Four Noble Truths, which are termed suffering, uh, dukkha, origins of suffering, samudaya, cessation of suffering, nirada, and path to the cessation of suffering, magga. Dukkha is the idea that all human beings are suffering. Samudaya is the idea that suffering results from desires. Uh, Nirvana is the idea that suffering can be stopped if an individual achieves nirvana. Magga is the discussion regarding the steps that an individual must take to achieve nirvana and is also called the middle way. So, like we said, they aim to achieve nirvana, uh, or which is synonymous to achieving enlightenment. And in order to achieve nirvana, an individual must remove hate, ignorance, and greed from within. Nirvana is achieved through a path called the middle way, which consists of three categories, including concentration, wisdom, and moral conduct. Moral conduct involves refraining from lying to individuals or using abusive language, not killing others or stealing from other people, and earning a living properly without resorting to injuring others or engaging in fortune telling. Concentration involves an individual making an effort to remove evil and encourage the good, being aware as well as mindful, and removing unwholesome ideas from one's mind. So, wisdom involves an individual engaging in thoughts related to peacefulness and love, as well as selflessness, and developing a full understanding of things, including the Four Noble Truths. Once an individual engages in such actions and thoughts, they will reach a final nirvana upon their death. After nirvana has been reached, the cycle of death and rebirth will be broken, which will end the individual's suffering. If nirvana is not achieved, then the cycle will continue, and upon death, the individual will be reborn as something else, potentially an animal or a human. An individual's new form depends on their karma. Good karma, engaging in positive thoughts and actions in one's life, results in being reborn into a higher form, and bad karma, engaging in negative thoughts and action in one's life, resulting in being reborn into a lower form, such as a hungry ghost. So, some of the examples of supernatural beings in Buddhism include Avalokiteshvara, Manchuri, Tara, and Mahakala. Avalokiteshvara, Manchuri, and Tara are known as Bodhisvata, which are beings that have achieved enlightened but do not go to nirvana, so they can help other individuals on their path to nirvana. Avalokiteshvara is known as the Bodhisattva of compassion, and Manchuri is known as the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Mahakala is considered to be a deity that protects using a blade to cut through individuals' attachments and egos, helping them on their path to nirvana. Tara is known as the female deity and also serves as a protector, protecting individuals from anger, wrongful views, greed, pride, desire, delusion, doubt, and jealousy. These are considered the 8 major dangers.
So I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go on now to discuss the behavioral impact of Buddhism. So the three categories that were previously discussed for the middle way include the moral conduct, concentration, and wisdom. Um, and these will significantly impact the behaviors of individuals that follow Buddhism. So, for example, an individual with Buddhism typically will refrain from lying and engaging in abusive language. They will instead engage in honesty and truth telling. So this behavior can be explained from behavior analytic perspective, especially through the processes of reinforcement, punishment, and rule governance. So an individual behavior telling the truth is likely to contact social approval and praise from members of the community. However, the behavior of lying is likely to be punished members of the community through verbal disapproval, which would be like verbal reprimands. For instance, if a child is caught lying, then the elder may respond by telling them that it is not appropriate to lie, and that by lying, they were straying away from the path of achieving nirvana. Um, However, I wanted to mention that Buddhism does not place a heavy emphasis on punishment-based procedures because such procedures would produce suffering in the form of aversive stimulation. This goes against the whole concept of Buddhism, which focuses on ending the cycle of suffering. Um, However, like how they view punishment and how behavior analytically we view punishment, it would be like different. So I bet verbal reprimands and verbal disapproval will still be provided. One of the first behaviors that I want to discuss relates to selflessness. So Buddhism promotes behaviors that are associated with selflessness. This can include helping other people in need, volunteering for various groups, and thinking about helping other individuals. These types of behaviors would be associated with the category of wisdom within the middle way, and particularly the right thought. So, as I discussed previously with the behavior of honesty, behaviors related to selflessness would likely contact reinforcement in the form of social approval from the Buddhist community. And additionally, these behaviors would also involve like rule governance. Okay. So like an individual that engages in selfless behaviors would be moving closer to nirvana. However, the consequence related to nirvana may never be experienced following these selfless behaviors, but the individual continues to engage these behaviors because of the rule. I'll discuss more about rule governance a little bit later on. So the next behaviors that I will discuss relate to behaviors that are associated with compassion, as well behaviors that involve not inflicting harm onto others. So these would be such examples of like engaging in vegetarianism and making a living without harming others. These behaviors would fall under the category of moral conduct within the middle way, and they are specifically related to right action and right livelihood. And as discussed with the previous behaviors, behaviors associated with compassion not harming others will be reinforced through social approval and praise by members of the Buddhist community. And rule governance continues to play a role in these behaviors. As with selfless behaviors, an individual is likely to move closer to nirvana if they engage in behaviors associated with compassion, as well as engage in behaviors that do not harm others. However, if an individual engages in heartless behaviors or harmful behaviors, behaviors that are harmful to others, they will move further away from nirvana. And they wouldn't engage these behaviors due to like the rule. If you engage in these behaviors, then you will not achieve nirvana. They might never like get that specific consequence, or it's not immediately provided after they engage in the behavior, but it still controls their responding. And then I want to briefly mention vegetarianism. So a Buddhist may engage in vegetarianism because of like their belief in the cycle of rebirth. And essentially humans can be reborn as animals. Therefore, if you kill an animal, then you may be providing suffering onto another being. And since they believe in a cycle of rebirth, it's possible this other being could even be like a loved one. Um, so that contributes to, why they don't engage in that behavior. So the next behaviors that I'm going to discuss relate to like mindfulness and being aware of the present moment. So for example, if an individual is attending to a teacher's presentation in class rather than thinking about playing basketball after school, then they would be demonstrating awareness. So awareness is like being aware of your present surroundings, like being like present in the moment. So Behaviors related to awareness and mindfulness would correspond to the category of moral conduct within the middle way, which is particularly like in the specific section of right mindfulness. So these behaviors would likely be determined by like rule governance. They're likely largely rule governed behaviors because awareness of the present moment is essentially a covert behavior, as other individuals not know what other people are thinking about. If you're sitting in the classroom and you're actually paying attention and thinking about what the teacher's saying, um, the other people can't tell that you're thinking. However, thoughts are still considered a behavior and they can still be explained through behavior analysis. Um, so rule governing probably plays a role in these behaviors. So as I mentioned before, in other behaviors, by engaging in acts associated with awareness and mindfulness, an individual moves closer to nirvana. Engaging in acts associated with inattentiveness would move an individual further away from nirvana. There may be no direct consequence for these behaviors, but the behaviors occur nonetheless. And then I just wanted to define rule governed behaviors really quick because I think they're very important to discussions about religion. So rule governed behaviors are defined by Cooper as and others as behavior controlled by a rule enables human behavior to come under the indirect control of a temporally remote or improbable but potentially significant consequence. So the last types of behaviors I was going to discuss relate to detachment and impermanence. So examples of behaviors would include an individual not engaging in hoarding of material, but instead only buying the things that they need. Um, well, my things that they need, not the things they desire. Also, behavior associated with accepting change, such as responding with "it is okay to lose a loved one" as things change the world, are promoted under Buddhism. So, once again, behaviors related to detachment and permanence involve rule governance and reinforcement. If an individual makes a statement that was previously provided in my example, then another person may respond with, "That is correct. The world is constantly in motion." This statement is a statement of approval and can serve to reinforce the other individual's behavior of impermanence. Additionally, if an individual engages in behavior such as screaming over the loss of a loved one or injuring themselves in response to this loss, then such behavior may be met with verbal disapproval or reprimand. For instance, a response might be, "You must embrace change, and the way you are acting will sadly lead you away from nirvana." It may be provided, and this response would serve as like a verbal, should like punish the behavior. Um, should I go on to say next? So punish the individual's behavior and should decrease the frequency of behaviors associated with permanence. I also wanted to mention that Skinner discusses in religious control in one of his works, and he states like this is demonstrated in Christianity with the concepts of heaven and hell. And this is similar in Buddhism with the concepts of nirvana and suffering through like the process and the cycle of rebirth. So nirvana is like would be like synonymous to heaven, and suffering through rebirth is almost synonymous with hell.
So it is important for clinicians to understand and research important aspects of clients' families' religion as part of their cultural background. There are actually 6 specific aspects of Buddhist belief and practices that clinicians should consider and how they approach their own behaviors. And then I'll be talking about each of these 6 in the next upcoming slides. The first one is understanding of the Buddhist values. So awareness of Buddhist principles such as compassion, mindfulness, and non-attachment, as other fellow teammates have touched upon. They can inform the clinician approach to the actual therapy. So emphasizing these values in the therapeutic process can resonate with the Buddhist clients and contribute to their well-being. So the clinician can incorporate teaching of compassion and non-attachment into their therapy, such as using DTD or social stories, thereby that encourages the client to explore their approach towards themselves and others. And then we have respect for nonviolence, as was described earlier. So Buddhism advocates for those non-violence, non-harming. So clinicians should be mindful of these principles and ensure that the therapeutic intervention prioritizes the well-being and dignity of the individual, avoiding any action or language that may cause harm, such as any punishment procedures, anything like that. The clinician can implement programs highlighting conflict resolution, strategies that promote peaceful resolution, as explained by Anthony, where you avoid punishment procedure as it goes against the religion. And then we have integration of mindfulness. So mindfulness is a central practice in Buddhism, as was described. So involves non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Clinicians can incorporate mindfulness techniques into their therapy sessions to help clients cultivate self-awareness, reduce stress, and develop coping skills. This teaching can help manage stress, anxiety, emphasizing present moment awareness and acceptance of thoughts and feelings. And then we have, again, the respect for rebirth and impermanence. So Buddhist beliefs in rebirth, as such as it influences how individuals approach life events and challenges. So clinicians should be sensitive to these beliefs and support clients in navigating the existential questions or coping with loss and change. And then we have cultural sensitivity. So Buddhist culture, practice, and rituals may vary widely across the different traditions and ethnic backgrounds. So clinicians should be respectful of these cultural differences and avoid making assumptions based on generalizing understanding of Buddhism. The clinician should respectfully ask clients about their specific cultural background, religion, observance. So it should definitely be in constant communication with the clients and their adult supporters. So then there's respect for autonomy and self-determination. So Buddhism emphasizes personal autonomy, important for individual agency. So clinicians should respect the client's right to make decisions about their own life and treatment, collaborating with them in a manner that honors their autonomy and value. So clinicians should collaborate, setting therapy goals, making treatment decisions, empowering them to make that active role in their intervention plan. Well, thank you for listening to our presentation, and here is our reference page.